AITA for crying when my boyfriend let his best friend's wife alter the dish I made for dinner. Throwaway account for privacy. I, 22F, have been dating my boyfriend, Alex, 28M, for about 2 years now. We met in a pretty unconventional way. Technically, I was working part-time at a coffee shop during my undergrad, and he was a regular customer. He'd always order the same thing, and after a few months of small talk, we started going out. It felt like fate in a way. We clicked instantly, and soon after, we became inseparable. He's genuinely one of the kindest people I've ever met, and we've never had any issues this serious before, which is why I'm struggling to understand what happened this time. Alex has this tight-knit group of friends that he's known since high school. They're like family to him, and over time I got to know them pretty well too. Most of his friends are a bit older than me, so sometimes I do feel a little out of place. They're settled in their careers and lives in ways that I'm still figuring out. I'm still finishing my degree, whereas many of them have been out of school for years, working in established jobs, or even starting families. I think that's where some of the dynamics get a little tricky. One of Alex's best friends, Dave, recently got married to Ellie, fake names for privacy. Ellie is a fantastic cook, the kind who can whip up a 5-course meal without breaking a sweat. Ellie has hosted quite a few dinners for the group, and she's always the star of the kitchen. She has this natural ability to make everything look and taste amazing, and I'll admit, I've always been a little in awe of her. I've been invited to these dinners quite often, and while I've always offered to bring something along, it's never really been taken seriously. The group kind of waves me off, saying things like, "You don't need to worry about that," or "Ellie's got it covered." I think they see me as the younger one who's still figuring things out, and that's fine, but it has made me feel a little left out sometimes. So when Ellie and Dave actually asked me to bring a dessert to one of their dinner parties, I was over the moon. I wanted to contribute something special, something that would really represent me and my background. I'm Indian, and though I'm living in a different country for my studies, I've always tried to keep my connection to my culture strong, especially through food. I may not be an expert cook like Ellie, but I have a few dishes that I'm proud of, especially when it comes to desserts. After thinking it over, I decided I'd make a Bengali sweet that's a personal favorite of mine. It's called Sundesh, a soft, delicate dessert made with milk, sugar, and a few traditional spices. It's a simple dish, but when done right, it's delicious and something I was really proud of. I called my mom back home, and she walked me through the process over video calls. I practiced a few times, even had my friends try it out before the dinner, and they all said it tasted great. Alex, my boyfriend, tried it too, and he said it was excellent. This felt like a big moment for me. I wasn't just bringing any dessert, I was bringing a piece of my heritage, a dish that carried the warmth of my home and family. I wanted to share that with Alex's friends, especially since it felt like I was always being seen as the young one in the group. I thought maybe this would show them a different side of me, a side that wasn't just the college kid trying to fit in. The night of the dinner, I was nervous but excited. I arrived at Dave and Ellie's house with my carefully prepared sundae, the sweet wrapped up and looking as perfect as I could make it. When I got there, I greeted Ellie warmly and placed the dish in the kitchen, feeling proud of myself. It felt like a small step toward being seen as an equal part of this group, and I was hopeful that everyone would enjoy what I'd made. When the time came for dinner, we all sat around the table, and it was a beautiful spread as always. Ellie's cooking was amazing as expected, and everyone was in good spirits. After the main course, Alex mentioned that I had brought a special dessert, and that I'd made it myself. I felt a little swell of pride as everyone turned to look at me, and I smiled as Alex went to the kitchen to bring out my sundae. But when the dessert came out, my heart sank. I immediately noticed that something was off. There was a faint dusting of cinnamon powder on top of the sweets, something that was never supposed to be there. I took a bite, and sure enough, the subtle flavors I'd worked so hard to perfect were overwhelmed by the taste of cinnamon. It was all I could taste, and I felt my stomach twist with disappointment. This wasn't what I had made. As I looked around the table, I noticed that people were smiling politely, saying, "It's nice, really sweet," but I could tell they didn't really know what to make of it. The delicate balance of the original flavors was gone, replaced with an unfamiliar spice that just didn't belong. After everyone had tried the dessert, Alex pulled me aside to explain. He told me that Ellie had noticed the sundae when he brought it out and commented that it looked too white, and that it might benefit from a bit of extra color and flavor. She suggested adding cinnamon powder to make it look more appealing. He said that she'd asked him if it was okay, and he'd told her to go ahead. He assured me it wasn't meant to be a big deal, just a little adjustment. He thought it wouldn't matter much, and he didn't see why I was upset. I could feel tears welling up in my eyes. I know it might sound silly to some people, but this dessert was something I put a lot of time, effort, and heart into. It wasn't just about the taste. Adding cinnamon was like changing the very essence of what I'd made, like it wasn't good enough the way it was. It hurt that Ellie felt she needed to change it. And it hurt even more that Alex hadn't stood up for me, that he'd let her change something that was so personal to me without even asking if it was okay. I told Alex that Ellie should have asked me directly and that he should have told her not to touch it, but he just kept brushing it off. He said that his friends already saw me as the baby of the group, and that me getting emotional over a bit of cinnamon would only reinforce that. He told me to just let it go, to not make a scene. On the drive home, I sat in silence, staring out the window and trying to keep my tears at bay. Alex could tell I was upset, but he seemed more frustrated than sympathetic, like he thought I was overreacting. He kept saying things like, "It's not that serious, it's just a bit of cinnamon," but to me, it was so much more than that. That night, when we got home, I couldn't hold back the tears anymore. I went straight to the bedroom, closed the door, and just cried. I felt humiliated, dismissed, and like my efforts didn't matter at all. It wasn't just about the dessert. It was about feeling like I didn't belong, like I was being treated as an outsider, even in my own relationship. Alex knocked on the door and eventually came in, looking worried. He apologized, saying that he didn't mean to make me feel this way, but he still didn't understand why it was such a big deal. He kept saying that my reaction made him feel like a terrible person, but it felt like he was focusing more on his own guilt than on how I felt. I tried to explain that it wasn't just about the cinnamon. It was about how I wanted to be taken seriously by his friends, how I wanted to contribute something real, and how it felt like Ellie had decided that my efforts weren't good enough. And then, instead of having my back, he just let her change something I'd put so much effort into. It felt like my culture, my traditions, and my efforts were all being dismissed as unimportant. Alex said he understood and that he was sorry, but I could tell he still didn't really get it. He told me to just get over it. And when I refused, he got frustrated and went to sleep on the couch. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of dread. I didn't text Alex good morning like I usually do, and I ignored his message asking if we could talk more when he got back from work. I needed space to sort out my feelings. I spent most of the day replaying the events in my head, wondering if maybe I had overreacted. Maybe it really wasn't such a big deal, and I just let my emotions get the better of me. But just as I was starting to doubt myself, I got a text from Alex that changed everything. He said that Ellie had seen my Reddit post, recognized it, and had confronted him about it. He said that we needed to talk, that this had become a much bigger deal than it should have, and that Ellie was upset that I had shared what happened online. I was shocked. I never expected my post to reach so many people, let alone for it to get back to Ellie and the friend group. Feeling cornered and unsure of what would happen next, I decided to have my best friend come over for support before Alex got home. I felt like I needed someone in my corner, someone who could help me make sense of everything that was happening. My best friend agreed, and we spent the afternoon talking through my feelings, trying to figure out why this had hurt me so much. When Alex got home that evening, things felt tense right away. He sat down with me in the living room, and I could see that he was trying to keep his cool. He said that he understood that I was upset, but that posting about it online had made things 10 times worse. He told me that Ellie was hurt and embarrassed, that Dave was annoyed with him, and that their whole friend group now knew about what happened. I took a deep breath and told him that I hadn't meant for any of this to happen. I just felt alone, like nobody understood why this mattered to me. I told him that Ellie's actions made me feel like my efforts didn't matter, and that his failure to stand up for me only made me feel more isolated. It wasn't just a dessert to me. It was a piece of my culture, of who I am, and it felt like that had been taken away. Alex seemed to soften a bit as I spoke, but he still seemed conflicted. He said he hadn't realized how much it had meant to me, and that he was sorry for dismissing my feelings. He promised to try to be more understanding in the future, but he also asked me to consider apologizing to Ellie for putting her on blast online. I don't know what to do now. On one hand, I want to move forward and make peace, but on the other, I still feel like my feelings have been minimized throughout all of this. Part of me wants to reach out to Ellie and try to clear the air, but another part of me thinks that I deserve an apology too, for altering my dish without asking me, and for making me feel like my efforts weren't good enough. So, AIDA,